Long ago, the world was a breathtaking place, full of beauty and promise. But people turned away from kindness, filling their days with selfishness and cruelty. Darkness spread, and God, who had created everything with love, was heartbroken. It was as if his masterpiece had been ruined, and the world was now overflowing with wickedness. God saw that people's thoughts were only evil, and violence filled the earth. With a heavy heart, he decided to start over. A great flood would wash the world clean. It was a painful choice, but God hoped for a new beginning where goodness could grow again, so he prepared a plan for a fresh start. In the midst of all this darkness, one man stood out, Noah. While others were cruel, Noah was good and faithful, walking with God each day. He wasn't perfect, but he tried to do what was right, even when others mocked him. God noticed Noah's goodness and chose him for a special purpose. Noah's faith shone like a light in the darkness. God decided to save Noah and his family, his wife, 3 sons, and their wives. They would be spared from the flood, entrusted with a vital mission. Noah's quiet obedience showed that God values those who do right, even when it's hard. The future of humanity and the animals would rest on Noah's shoulders. In a world that had turned away from goodness, God spoke to a man named Noah. "Build an ark," he commanded, giving Noah a task unlike any other in history. Imagine the weight of those words. Noah, a humble man, was chosen for a mission that would change the course of humanity. He listened intently, his heart pounding with a mix of awe and fear as God revealed his plan. God warned Noah, "I will send a flood to cover the earth, but you and your family will be saved." This promise was both a comfort and a challenge. Noah's family gathered around him, uncertain but trusting, knowing their lives depended on following God's instructions exactly. They would be the only ones spared from the coming disaster, entrusted with the future of all living things. The ark wasn't just any boat. It was a colossal vessel, unlike anything the world had ever seen. God gave Noah precise instructions, down to the last detail. This was to be a ship strong enough to withstand the greatest storm in history, a floating sanctuary for life itself. The sheer scale of the project was staggering, and the task ahead seemed impossible. The ark would measure 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide and 30 cubits high, longer than a modern football field, towering above the landscape. Every measurement had a purpose, every beam and plank placed with care. Noah and his sons measured and cut day after day, transforming piles of timber into the framework of hope. Crafted from sturdy gopher wood and sealed inside and out with pitch, the ark would be a fortress against the floodwaters. The sticky pitch made the vessel watertight, ensuring that not a single drop could seep in. Every board was hammered in place with determination, every seam sealed with care as Noah's family worked together to build their lifeboat. But the ark wasn't just for Noah's family. God instructed Noah to bring 2 of every kind of animal, male and female, into the ark. From the largest elephants to the tiniest insects, every creature would find a place aboard this floating refuge. The logistics were mind-boggling: food, space, and care for so many living things, all entrusted to Noah and his family. Imagine the scene: animals of every shape and size gathering near the ark, drawn by an invisible call. Lions and lambs, birds and reptiles, all waiting to be led inside. It was a floating zoo, a living collection of the world's creatures, preserved for a new beginning after the flood. Noah didn't hesitate. Even as his neighbors laughed and mocked him, calling him foolish for building a giant boat on dry land, he pressed on. His faith in God's word was unshakable. Day after day, he and his sons soared, hammered and lifted, ignoring the jeers and whispers from those who refused to believe. For years, Noah and his sons toiled under the sun, building the ark plank by plank. It was a labor of love and obedience, each day bringing them closer to completing the vessel that would save their lives. They followed every detail of God's instructions, never cutting corners, trusting that their hard work would be rewarded. Building the ark was more than just a construction project. It was an act of faith and devotion. Noah prayed for strength and guidance, knowing that he was preparing for a future only God could see. Every nail driven, every prayer whispered, was a testament to his trust in God's promise. At last, the ark stood completed on dry land, a massive ship ready to weather the coming storm. It was more than just a boat. It was a symbol of hope, faith, and salvation for Noah, his family, and all the creatures of the earth. As the ark neared completion, something miraculous happened. Animals from every corner of the earth began to arrive, two by two, just as God commanded. Elephants, snakes, giraffes, monkeys all came in an orderly parade. Noah and his family guided them aboard, finding each creature a place inside. They gathered food and water for the long journey ahead. The ark became a bustling, noisy, and safe haven for all. Finally, Noah's family entered, leaving the world behind. The great door stood open, a last invitation before it would be sealed. Soon the fate of the world would rest inside the ark. For 7 days, Noah's family and the animals waited inside the ark, their hearts pounding with uncertainty. The air was thick with anticipation, and every creak of the wooden vessel echoed through the silence. Outside, the world continued as if nothing was about to change, but inside the ark, time seemed to stand still. The animals gathered in their stalls shifted restlessly, sensing the tension in the air. Noah and his family whispered prayers, clinging to hope and faith as they waited for the unknown to unfold. Outside, people laughed and ignored the warnings. They mocked Noah's faith, dismissing his words as foolishness. Children played in the streets, merchants sold their wares, and life went on as usual. The warnings of a coming flood seemed impossible, even ridiculous, to those who had never seen such a thing. The sky was clear, and the sun shone brightly, giving no hint of the disaster that was about to unfold. The people's laughter rang out, oblivious to the storm gathering on the horizon. Then rain began to fall, first a gentle drizzle, barely noticed by those outside. But soon the sky darkened, and the drizzle turned into a relentless downpour. Thunder rumbled and lightning split the sky, illuminating the ark in flashes of white. The sound of rain beating against the wooden hull grew louder, drowning out the laughter and chatter outside. The world was changing, and there was no turning back. Water burst from the ground and poured from the sky for 40 days and nights without pause. Springs erupted from the earth, flooding fields and villages. The rain was unyielding, a curtain of water that blotted out the sun and turned day into night. Rivers swelled and broke their banks, and the land was quickly swallowed by the rising tide. The world as it was known began to disappear beneath the waves. Rivers overflowed, the sea rose, and the world was swallowed by water. Trees vanished beneath the surface, and hills became islands for only a moment before they too disappeared. The cries of those outside the ark faded, replaced by the roar of the flood. The power of nature was overwhelming, unstoppable and absolute. The ark lifted and floated, the only refuge in a world of destruction. As the waters rose higher, the ark was carried away from the land, drifting over what had once been fields and forests. Inside, Noah's family and the animals clung to each other, listening to the storm rage outside. The ark became their entire world, a fragile vessel of hope in a sea of chaos. Everything outside perished, only those in the ark survived. Homes, villages, and entire communities vanished beneath the floodwaters. The world was silent except for the sound of water and the creaking of the ark. The devastation was total, and the memory of what once was faded beneath the endless waves. The floodwaters covered even the highest mountains, their peaks barely visible above the surface before they too disappeared. The earth was transformed into a vast, endless ocean, stretching as far as the eye could see. There was no land, no shelter, nothing but water and sky. Looking out, Noah saw nothing but endless water. The horizon was a blur where sky met sea, and the world he had known was gone. The silence was profound, broken only by the gentle rocking of the ark and the distant calls of the animals within. The old world was gone, and the ark carried the hope of a new beginning. As the days passed, the storm subsided, and the waters calmed. The sun rose over the endless sea, casting a golden light on the ark. Inside, hope flickered in the hearts of those who survived, a promise that life would begin again. Silence and water surrounded them, but inside there was life. The ark was filled with the sounds of animals and the quiet voices of Noah's family. In the midst of destruction, they found comfort in each other and in the knowledge that they had been spared. Together they waited for the waters to recede, holding on to faith and the hope of a new world to come. Inside the ark, God himself shut the door, sealing them in safety. Life was hard work, feeding animals, cleaning stalls, and caring for every creature. Yet God's peace filled the ark, keeping everyone calm. For 150 days the ark drifted, rocking gently on the endless sea. Noah's family depended on God, trusting him through every creak and splash. They couldn't see land, but they believed God hadn't forgotten them. The ark was a symbol of God's grace, a place of hope in the midst of judgment. While chaos raged outside, inside there was life and the promise of a future. God's care surrounded them even in the darkest times. After months adrift, God remembered Noah and sent a wind to dry the earth. The ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat, but water still covered the land. Noah sent out a raven, then a dove, searching for signs of life. The dove returned with nothing, then again with a fresh olive leaf, a sign of new beginnings. Hope blossomed. The world was healing. One final time the dove flew out and didn't return. Noah knew the earth was ready. He removed the ark's covering and saw dry ground at last. The long journey was over. A new world awaited, fresh and full of promise. God's faithfulness had brought them through. God told Noah, "Come out of the ark, you and your family and all the animals." They stepped onto dry land, breathing in the clean air of a renewed world. Noah's first act was to build an altar and thank God for his protection. He offered a sacrifice showing gratitude and putting God first. God was pleased with Noah's worship and faith. This new beginning started with thankfulness and trust. Noah dedicated the new world to God, setting a foundation of faith. It was a humble, loving start to a cleansed earth. As Noah and his family stepped onto dry land, the world was quiet and new. The floodwaters had receded, leaving behind a cleansed earth and a sense of awe. In gratitude and reverence, Noah built an altar and worshipped God, offering thanks for deliverance and a new beginning. It was in this sacred moment, surrounded by the vastness of creation, that God spoke a promise. Never again would he destroy the earth with a flood. This was not just a vow to Noah, but a declaration to all generations that followed. To seal this covenant, God set a radiant rainbow in the sky. Its colors stretched from horizon to horizon, a breathtaking arc painted across the heavens. The rainbow was more than a beautiful sight. It was a sign, a visible reminder of God's unbreakable promise to every living creature on earth. Whenever rain falls and the sun breaks through, the rainbow appears, a symbol of hope after hardship and a testament to God's enduring faithfulness. People throughout history have looked up at rainbows with wonder, reminded that even after the fiercest storms, God's mercy shines through. The rainbow is a message written in light, a gentle assurance that God remembers his promises and cares for his creation. It invites us to pause, reflect, and trust in his goodness. Judgment had come in the form of the flood, but now grace would reign. The storm had passed, and in its place peace and hope blossomed. The sunlight breaking through the clouds was a sign that new life could begin, and that God's love would always find a way to shine through the darkness. Every time a rainbow appears, it's as if God is whispering, "I remember my promise, I am with you." It's a message for all people in every place and time, a reminder that we are never forgotten and that God's presence remains even when the skies seem stormy. This promise was not just for Noah and his family, but for every generation that would come after. It stretches across time, reaching us today. When we see a rainbow, we stand in the same hope that Noah did, knowing that God's covenant is everlasting and that his love endures through all ages. The story of Noah is more than an ancient tale. It's a lesson in obedience, faith, and the unfailing care of God. Noah listened, trusted, and acted even when the world around him doubted. His journey reminds us that faith sometimes means stepping into the unknown, believing that God will guide us through. The ark itself became a symbol of salvation, a place of refuge and safety found through trust in God's word. Just as the ark carried Noah and his family through the flood, faith carries us through life's storms, offering hope and protection when we need it most. Even after the darkest storms, when the world feels uncertain and hope seems lost, God's love remains. The rainbow reminds us that no matter how fierce the tempest, peace and renewal are possible, God's promises are sure and his love never fades. By faith, Noah became an heir of righteousness, and so can we. When we trust in God's promises and walk in faith, we too become part of his story, recipients of grace, hope, and a future painted with the colors of his love.